Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're wading into some really interesting peer-reviewed research. We've gathered the studies,
We have.
and we're synthesizing them to tackle a big question for, well, for all of us.
hmm
How are these virtual social networks, VSNs, actually affecting our sense of national identity? Is it changing? Eroding?
Right. And this is important because the studies we looked at, they go beyond just asking, is social media bad? They're actually trying to map out the how.
Mechanisms.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the key findings, the correlations, the data, to show you not just if using these networks matters, but specifically how things like how much you use them, how attached you feel to them, and the content you see. How all that shapes your feeling of belonging to your nation, your national pride.
Okay, let's start by setting the scene a bit, because this isn't some niche thing anymore, is it? We're talking about something huge in everyday life.
Oh, absolutely dominant. And the research often frames VSNs as a third place.
A third place.
Yeah, you've got home, you've got work, and now you've got this digital space, a social sphere that's really competing for our time and maybe our loyalty.
That's a powerful idea, competing space for identity.
It really is. Because a third place is where society happens, where you
Yes.
build connections, reinforce norms, shape who you are. And this one is just everywhere.
Okay, let's ground that. You mentioned time. What do the numbers say? How much time are we actually talking about?
Well, the average reported in these studies was around 2.43 hours per day.
2 hours and 43 minutes every day.
On average, yes.
Wow. If you, the listener, add that up, that's like nearly 2 full work weeks every year just scrolling, feeding the algorithm. It's hard to believe that doesn't have some kind of impact.
It is hard to believe. And remember, 2.43 is the average. The sources found groups reporting daily use way higher than that, up to 9.23 hours.
1 hours a day.
9 hours. So when you're spending almost a third of your waking life in this alternative social reality, it's maybe not surprising that researchers are seeing it challenge older ideas of belonging.
Okay, so when the research talks about national identity being challenged, what specifically are they measuring? What are the components?
Good question. They mainly focus on two things you can sort of measure. First, that subjective feeling, the sense of belonging, your emotional attachment to the nation. And second, your level of national pride.
Belonging and pride. And the big question is, does this digital third place weaken those feelings?
That's what they investigated.
So let's cut to the chase. Did they find a direct link? Does spending more time on VSNs mean you feel less connected to your country?
They did. Yes, that's one of the really clear findings. It wasn't just random. It's a statistically significant negative pattern.
Okay, unpack that negative pattern.
Well, they found that the more emotionally attached you felt to the VSN itself, like
Wow.
if you felt a strong sense of belonging to that online community, the weaker your reported national identity was.
Wait, so it's not just the time spent passively scrolling, but the actual emotional connection to the platform or the groups on it?
That seems to be a key part of it, yes.
Uh,
The feeling of belonging there correlates with less belonging here in the national sense. It acts like a measurable drag, pulling you away.
that feels like we're almost swapping one identity, one community for another.
That's certainly one interpretation the data supports. And just the sheer intensity of yiffing VSNs overall, how much time and how frequently, that also showed a negative link to national identity. But while usage and attachment kind of set the stage, the real driver identified in the analysis seems to be the content you're exposed to,
The content.
specifically exposure to what the sources call anti-national content. That showed up as a major factor driving the negative effect.
Okay, anti-national content, we need to be careful with that term. What did the researchers actually mean by that? What kind of content are we talking about?
Right, that's crucial context. In these studies, it generally meant material that directly challenges or criticizes national symbols, the country's history, its government, its institutions, or content that promotes skepticism towards them.
So things questioning the legitimacy or value of the nation itself?
Yes, or content that explicitly promotes, say, global identities or other group affiliations over the national one. Basically, stuff that frames the nation negatively or as less important.
So the finding is, if you see a lot of that type of content, your sense of national belonging and pride tends to go down.
Exactly. That exposure showed a clear, statistically significant negative correlation with national identity.
Okay, let's talk about the so what. Predictive power. When they crunched all the numbers, time, attachment, this anti-national content, which factor was the strongest predictor? What really moved the needle on eroding national identity?
That's where the regression analysis comes in, and it was pretty clear. Exposure to that anti-national content, it was the most significant negative predictor they found.
The most significant. More than time spent, more than attachment to the platform.
Yes. Its predictive power was very high, meaning knowing how much someone is exposed to that kind of content gives you a pretty strong indication of where their level of national identity might sit, specifically lower.
That's quite stark. It really highlights the power of the narrative itself. But hang on, VSNs aren't just one thing, right? There must be positive pro-national content, too.
Absolutely, and the research acknowledges that. It's not a one-way street. They actually measured exposure to both types.
Okay, so what did that show?
Well, the average score for exposure to content that reinforces national identity things, promoting belonging, pride, positive national stories, that was actually quite high. The mean score was 9.0 on their scale.
9.0. That sounds pretty high, yeah. Lots of positive reinforcement.
It does. But then you look at the other side. The average exposure score for the anti-national content, the stuff that damages identity, that was also high. It came in at 7.7.
Okay, so 9.0 positive, 7.7 negative. We're getting bombarded by both, basically.
Pretty much. It paints a picture of VSNs as this contested space, a constant push and pull between competing narratives about the nation.
Right, but here's the puzzle then. If the positive score, 9.0, is numerically higher than the negative score, 7.7, why did you just say the negative content was the strongest predictor of identity erosion? Is that 7.7 stuff just stickier, more impactful?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? And the researchers suggest a few reasons, linking back to some established theories.
Okay, theories like what?
Well, first, there's the simple possibility that negative or controversial content just gets more engagement. Algorithms might push it harder because conflict drives clicks and shares. Basic platform dynamics.
The outraged machine.
Could be part of it. But more fundamentally, they connect it to things like social identity theory.
Right, social identity theory. Remind us how that works and how VSNs might, well, exploit it.
Okay, so social identity theory, people like Todgeful and Turner pioneered this, basically says a big chunk of your self-esteem, your sense of who you are, comes from the groups you belong to. You're in groups.
Like being a fan of a sports team or your profession or your nation.
Exactly. National identity is traditionally a very powerful in-group. But VSNs, they offer literally hundreds, thousands of alternative in-groups.
Ah, okay. So instead of deriving my identity primarily from this big, sometimes abstract thing called the nation,
you can get it from a highly specific online community. Maybe it's about a niche hobby, a political cause, a lifestyle choice. These groups are often easier to join. They give you quicker validation. They feel more immediate, more relevant maybe.
I see. So they create competition for your sense of belonging.
Precisely. And if that virtual group, your online tribe, maybe even a global citizen identity fostered online, gives you a stronger sense of connection and self-worth than the national group does, you start investing your identity there.
And the national identity feels less important.
It can lead to what's called relative deprivation regarding the national identity. It starts to feel less rewarding, maybe even like an out-group compared to your more vibrant online communities.
So the 7.7 score for negative content might be powerful because it's often woven into these alternative groups, reinforcing the idea that the nation is flawed or not your real group.
That seems to be the mechanism suggested. The content helps frame the nation as the out-group, justifying your shift in allegiance, perhaps. It lands more heavily because it resonates within those competing identities.
That makes a lot of sense. It also sounds like it connects to other media theories like cultivation theory.
Absolutely. Cultivation theory fits right in. It suggests that the more time you spend immersed in a particular media environment, in this case, the VSN world, the more your perception of reality starts to mirror the world depicted there.
So if that VSN world constantly shows the nation's problems or constantly promotes other identities,
it cultivates, over the long term, a view of the nation as being less important, less positive, maybe less central to your life. It shapes your baseline assumptions.
Okay, we've talked a lot about this sense of belonging. What about the other component they measured, national pride? Did that follow the same pattern?
It did, yes. The findings were consistent. National pride also showed those negative correlations with the VSN variables.
For example?
For instance, that emotional attachment to the VSN platform itself. That showed a clear negative correlation with national pride, too. Higher attachment to the VSN, generally lower reported national pride.
So it's hitting both pillars, belonging and pride.
It seems so.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this. Based on the research you've pulled together, it sounds like VSNs erode national identity through, what, 3 main channels?
That's a good way to summarize it. It looks like a multi-pronged effect.
Yeah.
First, there's just the sheer time and intensity of use. It drains attention and energy from other affiliations.
Right. Channel 1, the time suck.
Channel 2,
Mm-hmm.
the emotional attachment you develop to the VSNs. That sense of belonging to the virtual space directly competes with national belonging, leveraging those social identity dynamics we talked about.
Competing loyalties. Got it. And channel 3.
Channel 3 is the content. Specifically, exposure to those narratives that actively challenge or undermine the nation, the anti-national content. This seems to be the most potent factor, actively helping to frame the nation as an outgroup.
And the fact that that content was the strongest negative predictor really underscores that these platforms aren't neutral. They're actively shaping how people feel about their country.
Exactly. It suggests VSNs are not just passive conduits, but active architects, you could say, of identity shift, maybe even amplified by algorithms.
It's definitely compelling research and really relevant for, well, everyone navigating the modern world. So the key takeaway for you, the listener.
The core finding is this clear, data-backed negative link.
Yeah.
Your emotional investment in VSNs, combined with exposure to content critical of the nation, correlates significantly with a measurable decrease in both your sense of national belonging and your national pride.
And we've seen these VSNs are powerful third places, contested grounds where pro and anti-national narratives battle it out daily.
Right. That 9.0 versus 7.7 exposure shows the fight is intense, but the research suggests the negative side currently has more predictive power in eroding identity.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. If national identity is now being forged, or perhaps contested, in this digital arena, if that daily battle between belonging 9.0 and skepticism 7.7 is real and algorithmically driven, what does that mean for your role?
Does it shift responsibility?
Maybe. Does it shift your responsibility from just passively consuming whatever scrolls by to becoming a more active, critical participant, thinking consciously about which narratives you engage with, which ones you let shape your sense of self, your community, your nation? Something to consider next time you open that app.
Definitely something to consider.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.